What's up, Leafs fans, and welcome to the first episode of Section 324, a Maple Leafs podcast by real fans for the real fan. I'm your co-host, Greg, right here in Ontario, Canada, and my other co-host is my brother, Jeffrey, all the way down in Queensland, Australia.
What's up, sports fans? We're here to get some Leaf talk. We're going to set the record straight with a few things today. Let's get started right away. Why did we want to start a podcast? It was my idea. I've been listening to a lot of sports podcasts, and I've heard a couple analytics guys now. Two of them, two shows in particular, have entertained the idea of trading Morgan Rielly. This talk infuriates me. I cannot stress his value to the team, his value to the city, what this guy has done. Obviously, I want him here to be a lifetime Leaf. The thought of trading him to open up cap space for, a potentially Alex Pietrangelo, maybe an upgrade on the right-hand side, I just think that's ludicrous. I don't think we should treat a homegrown talent like Morgan Rielly like that. In my eyes, he's a top-pair defenseman. He needs obviously a better quality partner to play with. He's never had one in his career in Toronto, and that should be the main concern right now, is finding him a right-hand shot defenseman who can, hold the blue line, stay back, and, allow him to play his game. So we're going to jump into the Morgan Rielly trade talk. Greg, would you ever consider trading Morgan Rielly? Is that something that Kyle Dubas needs to consider this offseason, considering his contract is going to be coming to an end shortly?
I think that would be one of the biggest mistakes that the team could make, and Dubas himself. I think once you trade away a guy like Morgan Rielly, you eventually realize that is exactly what you need back. So obviously the fact that he's been here since he's 18 years old, he's probably one of the leaders in the room alongside Tavares and maybe some of the older guys who have some veteran experience, cup experience like Muzzin. But he knows what he understands what it means to be a Toronto Maple Leaf, and his value is so important to this team. He saw that when he went down with his injury, where the Leafs were lacking, and he's a guy that definitely needs to be re-signed. Obviously they might have to free up some money to do so, but Dubas is going to have to get creative with the cap regardless, in keeping all that. So going forward, he's a guy that needs to be re-signed, and I would never look to trade Morgan Rielly. There are so many other pieces that you can move before you even consider the option of trading your star defenseman.
Okay, I want to add to that. First of all, Morgan Rielly is just entering his prime. He's obviously had some really good seasons in Toronto. Last year was an outbreak. He played amazing the whole season. Should have been nominated for at least Norris Trophy consideration, but he wasn't. He had a bit of an injury start to the season, and looks like he's got some nagging injuries that he's playing through. But you know what you're getting every night from Morgan Rielly, just consistent effort, a two-way game. You never hear anything bad about him in the media. He's a guy that we should build around. So the idea of trading him to kind of free up cap space and maybe get Pietrangelo, I don't want to do it. Secondly, the guy's on probably the best contract in the league for defensemen. In terms of value for dollars, he's making $5 million. That is generally what you pay a second pair defenseman. He can slide in as a 1A, 1B kind of guy. And for $5 million, you're not going to find better value in the league. Okay, so yeah, you might be able to trade him, recoup some assets, free up some space for Pietrangelo, but then you're going to have to pay someone in free agency to kind of step in and play some top 4 minutes, and you're going to have to pay them $5 million. And no one that we're getting in free agency could be as good as Morgan. So he's here to stay. Obviously, we got 2 more years on a very team-friendly deal, but he's going to want to get paid, Greg. What's he worth in your eyes? What sort of money should we be entertaining?
You're not going to be able to break the bank. I think that he hopefully understands that. The salary cap isn't going up based on the situation that we're currently in. Obviously, you look at comparables. Is he that $8 million defenseman? Definitely. So like I said, he deserves that money. An 8x7 deal works fine. Probably, limited no trade clauses in there, certain teams that he gets to pick and choose from. He's a guy that you want here. He's a staple on our team. He's part of the cornerstone. You can look to move other pieces before you look to move him. There's a reason why when you talk about, a new edition of Team Canada, that Morgan Rielly would be on that team. These are defensemen that you don't trade. So you're definitely re-signing him. Whatever it comes down to, whatever it takes. You also hope that Morgan understands the situation, that we have 3 star forwards making $10 million. So, he might hopefully lessen his asking price a bit. But he's a guy that you definitely need to get inked down to a deal, regardless of how it plays out.
Yeah. Let's keep in mind, he's only 26 years old. He's going to get better. He'll be a free agent when he's 28. You really want to limit the length of that deal. I like the way how Dubas is obviously 5 to 6 years for a 28-year-old is ideal, but if you have to give him 7-8 years and you can get him under $8 million, that's a perfect contract. That's a no-brainer in my opinion. I don't think you can go higher than the John Carlson. 8 years, $8 million. I think that's fair for Morgan.
Yeah, I think, what it comes down to is, his value should only increase if you find him the right partner. And we're going to jump into that now, where they've had this experiment of trying so many players with him, and nothing really seems to stick, because either A, they can't play the right-hand side, or they're just not comfortable or fit with him. We've tried CC at the start of the year, and while CC himself, is a capable NHLer, he does belong on a bottom 6 role, on the bottom pairing. And then recently, they've tried, just going all in. Let's just toss our 2 best offensive guys. And, Barry, to me, even though his season has been a complete waste, and his points, might not dictate that. He has put up some points for us, but what we were expecting as Leaf fans, and I think what the management team was expecting from Barry, has been a disappointment so far. And even when you've paired him with Rielly, it still has been, a waste of a trade, in my opinion.
Oh, if we're talking about the trade for Nazem Kadri, I hated it from the moment it happened, and I hate it even more now that I've watched him play and realized the guy just can't play defense. He's not what we need. I'm very happy to say goodbye to him. I was actually really hoping that we traded him at the deadline to get some draft picks, but they rolled the dice with Barry. They didn't want to cut bait a little too soon and, send the wrong message to the team heading into the playoffs. So I'm okay with holding on to him and seeing what he can do in the playoffs. But looking forward, there's no room for him on this roster, especially given the salary that he's going to command. You're looking at anywhere from $5 million plus. Maybe with the cap going down, he might be one of those guys that kind of gets hoodwinked into a little short-term prove it kind of deal, but I really don't want to see him back in Toronto.
Nope, I agree on that point.
Cody Ceci, another guy who just, he's not good enough to play on your top pair. I didn't mind his game as much as most people did. I know he was, one of the guys that got pointed out and singled out a lot when the Leafs were off to a really rocky start. To me, it's just we were playing him in a pair and in minutes that we said at the beginning of the season that we wouldn't, but we had no one else to put there, so he got a shot with Morgan and it just didn't work. I don't mind him on the bottom pair making under $2 million on a short-term deal, but he's another guy that we're probably going to lose in free agency because we just got a lot of cheap depth on the way. So I'm happy to see both of them gone. Just kind of, the same problem over and over and over again in Toronto. Nobody to kind of play that stay home, in your face, tough to play against defensemen on the top pair.
So if you bring up that point, that's what we're lacking. Do we go the trade route or do we go the UFA route to solve that problem and that fit that we need?
Yeah, let's look at some free agents that are I've put on a short list here, and I'm ranking them from least likely to sign in Toronto to most likely. I circled 4 names here. We'll start with probably the most coveted free agent in this class, Alex Pietrangelo. The guy just won a cup. He's a Team Canada shoe-in, 5th in the league in defensive points with 52 points in 70 games. He's obviously someone that would look really good in the blue and white, but You
I
know,
think the only way that he comes home is if he wants to play in Toronto, being a hometown kid. Now, with that said, St. Louis is going to throw the bank at him. They're
I
going to
don't.
give him they're going to give him Dowdy money, in
No,
my opinion.
I literally don't think he's in St. Louis's plans moving forward. If you look at, the moves that Armstrong's been making, especially during the lockdown, like it's a slap in the face to Peter Angelo. The guy's been with you for what, 10 years? He's 28
Yeah,
now. He's won you a cup. He's earned a paycheck, and you go out and sign Justin Falk and you sign Marco Scandella to 4 and 6 or 7 year extensions. Like that's a
yeah,
slap in the face. If I'm Peter Angelo, I'm not coming back just because like that's a disrespectful business move. I know business is cutthroat, but if I'm him, I'm pissed off. The last team I want to play for is St. Louis. If he tries to offer me, a $5 million contract, like forget it,
yeah.
buddy.
No, I think the only offer that he's taking from them is a max deal at Dowdy money, at Carlson money. And if not, he's going to test the waters. Do the Leafs have the cap room to sign him? That's going to be really tough,
No,
you
no,
know?
absolutely not.
Um,
We obviously had to mention him because
yeah,
he would look fantastic.
yeah, and he'll be the
Um,
number one UFA out there.
yeah, of course, but the chance of him coming to Toronto, I peg it down as less than 10%.
All right,
Um,
next guy on the list.
Next guy on the list is recently retired. That would be, or contract terminated. Can you guess who that is?
Buff the stuff. Um,
Dustin Bufflin.
I'm just gonna go straight out there and say I don't think Big Buff will ever play hockey again.
I
As
agree
as
with
sad
you.
as that
I
as sad
do.
as that
Yeah.
is, because he was such a force on the ice. But I don't see him playing again. So I don't, like realistically, we wish him all the best. He's had a great career. You hope that he's healthy and mentally, healthy as well. Hopefully that he's happy in his choice. But
How
I just don't see him lacing them up
Yeah,
again.
I agree. I think the fit would be fantastic. Him and Morgan Rielly as a top pair would be something spectacular to watch. The guy's an absolute unit, something we need, someone who stands up for his teammates, clears the front of the net, can play both ends of the ice. So I'd love to see him in Toronto. Um, I'm pegging him as 15%.
Okay.
We have the foundation, we have the best staff, we have the best facilities in the league. It might be one of those. All right, you want to come join us at the end of training camp, and we'll sign
Yeah,
you
or
to a two.
join us on
Yeah,
December 1st before the roster freeze.
exactly, and we'll give you like a $2 million paycheck to play half a season. Who knows? It could be something like that, and that's something I'd be interested in due to the talent level. But it's still a very unlikely scenario.
Yeah. All right, bring up
Next,
one more guy.
I got two more on the list. Travis Hominick is next on the list. He's a guy I've liked for years. Um, I loved him in New York. I really wanted the Leafs to. I know one summer we offered JVR for him, and I would have been happy if he came to Toronto. He's just someone I love his game. He's just hard to play against. He's tough. Kills penalties, eats minutes, does all the little things right. Something you need on a championship team. My concern are injuries. The guy can't stay healthy, and
I think with the way that he plays,
yeah.
that his body is beat up. And maybe this little break here does some wonders for him, with the league being shut down right now. But going forward, I don't think he's a guy that you can commit a lot of term to. Now, if it's a short-term deal, 1-2 year thing, I think I'd be down for it. I don't know if he's going to fit in on that top pairing. Is he a guy that can play your top four? Most definitely, but
Would
then
you give?
you still have to find a partner for Rielly.
All right. Well, Hominick to me makes sense as a partner for Rielly, given the way he plays. Um, Realistically, he's publicly stated that he wants to be out west. So I peg this as less than 20% chance that
Yeah.
he gets signed by Toronto. Hypothetically, though, let's just throw out a scenario. I offer a contract. It's $5 million for 3 years. Seems like a pretty fair deal, price and term. Would you do it? Would you want him? Yes or no?
No.
Ooh.
No.
See, I'm kind of inclined to open up some cap space by trading a winger and pulling the trigger on that deal. I like the idea of Hominick coming. It really kind of balances out our roster a little bit. So let's move on to the next guy. The last guy I got on the list, I have him as the most likely candidate because he is a Toronto boy. His name is Chris Tanev from the Vancouver Canucks. Another stay-at-home defenseman, right shooting, kills penalties, eats minutes, blocks shots, good underlying numbers, coming off a reasonable contract, and UFA. You like him, Greg?
I do like his game. Same sort of thing. I think if anyone's going to come, you got to look at the term. Obviously, anyone who's a UFA is signing for the most money they can get, the longest term they can get, because it comes down to job security, career security, maxing out on what you can earn. But obviously, there's that factor. Do you want to come home and play with this team? I'd be more comfortable signing Tanev to that money that you talked about with Hamonic. I think that his, even though he doesn't play as rough of a style, but he's still physical. I just think that he's gonna, if you sign him to a 5-year deal, he's hopefully gonna earn or be around for those 5 years.
I am not giving Chris Tanev a 5-year deal. I'm sorry. Him and Hamonic, they both have major injury concerns. They play around the 70 game mark, sometimes even less. So for him, he's another guy. Max 3-year deal. And the max dollar I would give him is, 4.5, maybe 5 if I'm desperate. And I'm pretty desperate for a right-hand defenseman. So 3 years, $5 million for Tanev. Once again, if we can trade in Andreas Janssen and maybe open up a little bit of cap space, then I think I'm going to do it because, I don't want to go into the season with Timothy Liljegren, Justin Hall as our only right shooting defenseman.
Okay, so that was the UFA options that we were looking at.
Yeah.
What happens if the Leafs went the trade route to potentially fill this hole?
Yeah, I got one
We'll name
guy.
one person each.
Yeah, so my guy that, I'm a huge fan of, this is like my type of hockey player right here. It's Josh Manson from the Anaheim Ducks. Huge fan of this guy's game. He fights, he hits, he does everything you want from a stay-at-home defenseman. He's big, stands up for teammates. He doesn't take any shit. I put this guy as the number one trade target this offseason if I'm Kyle Dubas. He's on a very reasonable contract, $4.1 million for another 2 years. He'd be UFA at the same time as Morgan Rielly. I think it makes a lot of sense from a need and cap dollar fit. The question is, what do you have to give up to get Josh Manson?
Yeah, I think if Dubas is going to be all in with what he has in the next 2 years, especially with, Anderson's contract's going to be renewed, Riley's contract's going to be renewed, you might potentially have to trade one of those big four on offense, on the forwards there. Manson is the guy that you should be making a play at. Does that mean that you're trading away a first-round pick, a mid-level forward, and maybe your best defenseman prospect? Is that what it takes to get him out of Anaheim?
I'm not giving up that much for him. And if he was under team control for maybe 4 to 5 years, I think I would be inclined to consider it. But with only 2 years, he could have one injury and his time in Toronto could be over completely.
Yeah.
Especially he's going to be looking for a raise after this contract. So I like him right now at 4.1. Would I be willing to give up a first, Rasmus Sandin and Andreas Janssen? No. But, I would give up a first and Andreas Janssen for sure, and maybe a B-level prospect to sweeten the deal.
Maybe toss in Liljegren or something like that, who I don't see
Liljegren
being in the Leafs' plans.
Yeah, Liljegren is definitely trade bait for me. So if it's Liljegren, a first, and Andreas Janssen to get exactly what we need, I'm in.
There you go. Very nice.
All right, that is it for episode 1, folks. We'll be back at you soon from section 324. Signing off from Queensland, Australia. This is Jeff.
Signing off from Ontario, Canada. This is Greg. And episode 1 has been brought to you by bookseats.com. If you're ever looking to do some travel and go catch a sporting event in all cities across North America, these guys have been fantastic. I've used them recently, and such great customer service from the team there. So check them out. We'll throw the website right below us right here. And that is episode 1 of Section 324 Leafs Talk. And we will come at you soon. Check you later.